Greetings everyone, my name is Buck Business. Konnichiwa, I'm Kawaii Critic, and today we're here to review My Little Pony Season 8, Episode 7, Horseplay. Is it too much to ask for a really good Celestia Sun episode instead of just an okay one? I mean, sure, it's better than A Royal Problem by a large amount, considering that was the worst episode of the last season, but it still has its issues. But before we start off with that, let's just start from the beginning. So, Twilight-san wants to celebrate Celestia-san's raising of the sun for a certain amount of times. So, Twilight-san mentions that she wants to do this via a play. From there, we see that Celestia is overwhelmed and overexcited about wanting to take part. Meanwhile, Spike gives a bit of direction, while Pinkie Pie does confetti, Applejack does the sets, Rarity does the costume, and Fluttershy is doing lines as, I believe, a narrator at this point in time. But she's apparently become an expert of remembering her lines. But once they learn that the princess is going to be involved, that being Princess Celestia-san, they want to really step up their game of the production of this play. And it leads to probably one of the stupidest Starlight-san's moments to add to that she's already the worst written character on the show. So she proceeds to go on about how Twilight-san isn't a, quote, princess. She, for whatever reason, freaks out about Celestia-san being in the play, and what this really boils down to is a continuity issue. I mean, at first glance, it's just a simple line, but remember, she was the one who stepped up in A Royal Problem in the first place to Celestia-san. So, but now here, oh, it's a princess. Oh, I better get in line. Better do my job, but not for Twilight-san because she's not a, quote, princess. Again, whatever that means. So, Fluttershy, again, starts off narrating with the Student 6 in the play as Star Swirl and a bunch of other unicorns. Apparently, they were the ones who rose the sun before Celestia. And when it comes time for Celestia to raise the sun, or start off her lines and come out and do her thing, she starts off really quiet. Twilight-san sees this and says to try it again, but louder. And thus she decides to do her Canterlot voice, which is just essentially shouting and being loud. And then Applejack mentions being honest throughout the episode, and this is the first of many, of 3, I believe it was, where Twilight is trying to pull off this whole, oh, you're doing really good act. So we see Celestia struggle even further, falling behind the other Student 6 as they practice this little dance number. And Applejack-san once again mentions tell the truth a secondary time. And Spiky-kun wants to stop the play, probably put it on hold. That is, until Dash-chan mentions how she's told every pony that this play was taking place. So Twilight, acting on her instincts, tries to bring Celestia to these acting teachers. They try improv, they try a number of different things, but she seems to be taking every lesson a little bit too literally at that point in time. Meanwhile, Pinkie-san is making a new sun because the stage was, messed up at that point. She tries using a marshmallow, which causes a hazard, and then she does another thing that causes another hazard. And once again, Twilight lies to Celestia again, and Applejack goes on about the truth again. It's annoying, we get the point, but it doesn't end there. So Pinkie Pie brings up some fireworks, they go off, and then Wily-san finally blurts out the truth with Celestia-san being behind the curtain. So she flies off, and Spiky-kun gets told to stall as much as he can. So Celestia-san mentions how Applejack-san would have likely given that advice, and Twilight-san's like, oops, my bad. And then from there, we see Celestia take on the role of director, essentially, setting up the play, and makes Spike the narrator, and then turns Fluttershy into the lead of Celestia. She planes up the sun just in time as she mentions it, and then, probably the only part that actually really saves the episode, kind of, is the end. So indeed, Celestia-san gives them the remaining, the crew, the troll treatment of saying that she will no longer be a princess, that she will give up her life's work for acting, and then Twilight-san actually falls for it. And then Celestia-san says, haha, I might be a better actress than you first thought. And that's where the episode ends. Honestly, that being kind of redundant at this point, this episode had a lot of potential, again, honestly. But it falls flat by speaking up on the moral like 3 to 4 times within the context of the episode, and it kind of just falls apart. Some of the parts, again, with Starlight being stupid, breaks continuity. And it's just meant for a little, a one-off joke? It's totally not even worth it. But this is probably one of the main reasons why we thought that it would have been better if it had been Twilight in A Royal Problem, not learning what Starlight learned, which is probably one of the worst lessons in MLP history, but instead learning to stand up to Celestia. Sure, it might have been a moral we've seen before, but in the context of character, that is still something she still needs to learn how to do. We needed that episode to happen, and it didn't happen before, and it didn't happen here. Instead, we see Twilight acting like the guilty party because she held on to the secret for far too long. It would have been more interesting to see them even mix morals, since we've already seen this moral before. Because they could have thrown in another moral we've seen before and mixed the two together. That would have been a more interesting take on 2 morals instead of just one. We could have seen, in Stranger Than Fanfiction, and slightly changed the moral very slightly, that Celestia can probably take the criticism that Twilight gave her and say that everything is actually just fine as it was, and have Celestia be the one to apologize for not being able to put everything together. That would have been a really interesting concept. Have Celestia recognize her faults and actually say, oh wow, I am kind of bad at this. Something like that. That would have been really interesting for Princess Celestia, but instead, it falls back on Twilight, and that just doesn't feel right on its own, because again, we've seen this moral before, and it hits so hard, so constantly, it's just annoying, and it just bogs down the entire episode. Other than that, all the other little gags just don't really hit that far home, really. And even Celestia's son's journey of, oh, I just wanted to be part of the play, I can kind of see where she's coming from, but as someone who's actually been a part of a play, there's a huge difference between helping in the play and being in the play. Trust me, I've done both. In fact, there was a point in my life where I did the stage lights, and it's a very different experience from actually being a lead in the play. A lot more responsibility is on you when you're on the lead of a play. That's just the nature of acting. People pay more attention to the things that are happening on stage rather than the things that are happening off stage. And then again, that's just someone who has the experience in acting to know that. So overall, again, just to reiterate, this is just an okay episode, and it barely just reaches okay at best. It barely passes, and that's just not even acceptable at this point. It's more disappointing than anything. That's a more accurate word to use at this point. But that is our review of this episode. Stick top, ting tong tori! And if you did enjoy this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, everyone, farewell. Bye-bye!